Let's not beat around the bush here. Destiny 2 has a lot of problems, and even though there have been several updates aimed at addressing these problems, and we have had some big improvements to the game, stuff like the raid armor modifiers, recently the revamped Nightfall, and even things like MASTERWORK armor and weapons. These are all improvements, but are they enough? Well, for a lot of people, frankly, no. They're still monitoring the game from afar, wondering if there is going to be an update big enough and substantial enough to warrant them coming back into the game. Well, is that update the March update? This is going to be undoubtedly a massive change to Destiny 2. Will this be the update that fixes a lot of Destiny 2's core issues and finally starts regaining the player base? Let's talk about it. What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and yes, today we are going to be talking about the upcoming March update, going over its features and why these features are a big deal and why they could really fix a lot of Destiny 2's problems. Now, when I say that, however, it's very dependent on your view of Destiny 2, because Destiny 2 players and Destiny 2 disgruntled players belong to a very wide spectrum. On the one hand, you have people that treat YouTube like a messaging board and just see the title, already type in comments about how Destiny is dead. Hi guys, thanks for stopping by. And on the other hand, you have fanboys that are so blinded. I remember a guy on Twitter, I said that Destiny 2 was losing players. He asked for proof. I said the trials numbers were in the 70,000s, lower than any point in Destiny 1's history, and he accused me of not knowing how math works. Alright, so you have people all the way on these two sides of the spectrums, the haters and the blind fanboys, but I think most people are lumped in the middle, more reasonably minded, and just looking at Destiny 2, they've stopped playing the game, and they're just waiting for an update that warrants a sufficient enough change to bring them back. And I seriously think that the March update, if done right, will be that update. So what exactly is the March update adding and why is it important? Well, let's talk about the first feature. The number one thing listed in the development roadmap is weapon and ability sandbox changes. This one, just by itself, is a big factor in, frankly, why people left the game. You can only get killed with a Uriel's gift so many times before you start to go insane, right? And people were waiting and waiting and waiting for a sandbox update, and the last time it came, it did literally nothing to the meta. This one, Bungie has stated, will hopefully shake up the meta. Stuff we already know is happening includes buff to hand cannons, pulse rifles especially are getting a big buff, certain scout rifles, and other lesser used guns. If these buffs are substantial enough, I would really like to see pulse rifles make an appearance in the Crucible. And that reason on its own, a shakeup in the meta, will definitely just increase the fun for people already playing the game and maybe attract people back. But this weapon and ability sandbox changes includes more than the weapon part, but the ability part. And the ability sandbox changes is also a huge factor. This includes the quote-unquote go faster update. Now this, according to Bungie, is basically an increase to mobility across the board. Your character is going to move faster on March 27th. Jumps like strafe lift, catapult, and basically every jump in the game is actually going to increase your momentum when you use it. It won't slow you down. You won't be slowly floating in the air as you're picked off by Uriel's gifts and Antiopes. You might actually be able to dart out of a situation. And that in and of itself is a great way in making Destiny 2, the movement, feel a lot more similar to Destiny 1. This is again another big factor that will hopefully make people feel more at home when playing Destiny 2. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys watching, I'm sure almost everyone watching, whether they play Destiny 2 or not, is coming from a Destiny 1 background. And that's why, you know, a lot of people have left the game, because it's a downgrade in many ways from Destiny 1. So changing movement back to a more Destiny 1 model, that's a big deal. But moving on from there, the second feature is heroic strike modifiers. This, if done properly, will be huge. I made a video comparing the Destiny 1 strikes and the Destiny 2 strikes. I would highly encourage anyone who hasn't seen it to see it. I think it's one of the best examples, period, of the downgrades made in Destiny 2 compared to Destiny 1. And the Destiny 1 heroic strikes and the modifiers were a blast. Every week putting on a very unique loadout and trying to maximize your lethality in those heroic strikes. If it was Brawler, you'd have like a melee class. Arc Burn, you gotta bring out the Xylo Supercell and all of that stuff. There was so much cool customization that resulted because of these modifiers. And finally reintroducing them into Destiny 2, I think will be huge in just increasing replayability. But they've got to be done right. We can't just have really small modifiers or modifiers that change all the time, like Prism, where you don't get to pick a loadout that really works. You just are still using your loadout you've already been using because the burn changes every few seconds. We need an honest-to-goodness Arc Burn, Void Burn, and Solar Burn reintroduced in the game to make us actually switch subclasses, switch exotics, and so on. Moving on from there, the next point, Iron Banner 6v6. This one is again really big. So many people really did not enjoy the shift to 4v4 from Destiny 1's 6v6, especially if you play casually. Just less cool things can happen. You literally can't get a pentakill. It's impossible. You can only get a quad kill, right? So the exciting things that could happen in Destiny 1, that's been lowered because of the shift to 4v4. If Iron Banner can properly do 6v6, it's going to be big. And it is pretty smart by Bungie's part to put it in Iron Banner. This is a special event, it lasts for a short while. Changing everything to 6v6 could be a disaster. The maps certainly aren't designed for it, and the team shotting is already bad enough with just 4 people, right? But trying it out in Iron Banner, this special thing that even if you don't like it, it'll go away and it won't impact the normal Crucible. That's smart. And if it works right, if people are like, holy crap, 6v6 in D2 is so much more fun, you just have your abilities charging faster, you have more teamwork, you have this crazy stuff going on, then we could see 6v6 implemented in more areas of the game. Right now it's going to be for Iron Banner, but it's going to be very nice to see more people on the opposing team and on your team. Right after that, the addition of a weekly Crucible playlist featuring Mayhem and Rumble. This is again, well, sorry for repeating myself, but huge. So many people have left the game because their favorite game mode isn't in Destiny 2. I know so many people that lived and died by Rumble. Rumble was their thing, and the fact that it's not in the game, well, they're not playing, right? And so if you are people who really enjoyed Rumble or really enjoyed Mayhem in Destiny 1, and I know there's a lot of people who did, well, now you have a reason to log back on the game where previously you did not. So this addition is again going to be pretty substantial in bringing people who enjoyed those features in Destiny 1, who really wanted them in Destiny 2 and were disappointed they weren't there. Well, now that they are there, hopefully this will encourage people to come back and play the game. And if they're done properly, and there are going to be some changes, Rumble is 8 players. So, you know, that could be very interesting. And speaking of the Crucible, the next point is Crucible ammo and gameplay tuning. This somewhat goes with the Go Faster update we talked about earlier. Essentially, power ammo is going to spawn more often pretty much everywhere, and even the respawn timers have been reduced, so you're going to spawn quickly and you're going to be able to get into the fight even quicker. So this is going to just make Destiny 2 feel a little bit more sporadic, a little bit more action-packed. And like I said, a little bit more similar to Destiny 1, which I think a lot of people do want. After that, we have a few minor things. We have Crucible quitter penalties. Well, depending on how you view that, it could be a major thing. We have repeat Crucible map and strike protection. So if you're playing strikes, you won't get the same strike map 3 times in a row, thank goodness. Same with Crucible maps. You have exotic repetition reduction, so you won't get the same exotic twice in a row. And we have companion vendor viewing. You can view the vendors from your phone, right? These are minor things, general quality of life improvements. But there's one more major thing, and this is frankly one of the biggest things if done properly. That's a big theme for this whole update. It's got to be done properly. But that last thing, the last point we're going to talk about is Nightfall Strike Unique Rewards. This could be huge. if there is actual, new, desirable weapons that are associated with each different strike and are available to earn when that strike is a Nightfall. So you have a new great auto rifle that looks sweet. It's designed with the theme of a certain strike. Let's say Exodus Black, right? It's a Fallen themed assault rifle, or I should say auto rifle. And you can only earn it when Exodus Black is the Nightfall. So you're grinding Exodus Black, trying to get this gun, and hopefully it'll have some decent perks or some unique perks that set it apart from the competition. This is going to drive a ton of people to log on every week and try to do the Nightfalls. Case in point for why that is, the Sunrise Bounty. When the Sunrise Bounty was introduced into Destiny 1 with the Dawning, it was a bounty that if you completed that week's Nightfall, you could earn one weapon from any point in Destiny, well, almost any point in Destiny 1's history, so you could earn old, like, Year 2 Iron Banner weapons and Trials weapons that weren't available anywhere else in the loot pool, so that made that bounty super desirable, and on top of that, you could even earn the Icebreaker Exotic Sniper Rifle from the Sunrise Bounty. When the Sunrise Bounty was active, especially within the first few months of it coming out, when people were still trying to do Nightfalls just to earn the Sunbreaker, holy crap, Nightfalls were lit! Every week, everyone was doing the Nightfall, trying to complete those sunrises. It was awesome, right? And Destiny 2 just doesn't have that, because why would you do the Nightfall when, like, honestly, what loot do you get from the Nightfall? Your 37th exotic for that week because exotics are handed out like candy? Like, no, you don't care. But unique weapons that you can only get from the Nightfall, boom, that would be huge. But anything less than that, if it's armor, if it's, God forbid, emblems again, no one's gonna care. Bungie has to be bringing the thunder. They have to be bringing actual desirable weapons. Anything else is just not good enough. So all of these changes combined on one day, March 27th, we are going to have a new meta, a completely new movement system in the game, and a increase of speed all around the board. We have heroic strike modifiers. Iron Banner is going to be 6v6. We're going to have a new playlist in PvP, the weekly rotating Crucible playlist. We're going to have PvP change substantially with gameplay tuning and the increase of power ammo and spawns, etc. We're going to have new exclusive Nightfall rewards. All of these things in one update is going to massively change the game, hopefully. And that's really where I want to end this, and that's really the most important part. All of these things, we are still speculating. Bungie says Sandbox changes, but the last Sandbox change was an absolute disaster. It did basically nothing and didn't shift the meta at all. If Bungie does that again, it's going to be a disaster. If the heroic strike modifiers are minor and don't really impact gameplay that much, it's going to be a disaster. If the Nightfall rewards aren't unique weapons, you guessed it, it's going to be a disaster. So Bungie is going to have to nail each one of these points, but if they do, this is, I believe, the update that's going to start to attract people back into the game. Because, very importantly, the next update in May is coming with the next expansion. And there, it's very hard to tell if the update has been substantial enough. People are, of course, going to be hopping back on the game because there's new content in the game. But just because there's a bunch of new exotics and weapons and stuff to do, that doesn't necessarily mean the core issues of the game have been solved whatsoever. We kind of saw this with the Curse of Osiris. There was a lot of interest with the Curse of Osiris. We have a new raid layer, we have these new exotics, everything was good for a few weeks, and then everyone realized, oh wait, this doesn't do anything to solve the really core issues of Destiny 2. And in fact, a lot of it was just adding a billion items to the Eververse store. So it flopped. It was okay for a few weeks, and then it went right back to square one. Nothing really improved. So the March update, not having a DLC associated with it, and just having the game as it is right now, and judging these improvements based on just the improvements, not an influx of new content, is going to be a really telling factor in whether or not the game has improved. So that's another very important thing to remember. So guys, you know, if you're watching this video and you're someone who doesn't play the game and you're wondering, when should I come back? If your friends are asking you, well, you know, when should I come back? Send them this video. This is the time. March 27th, this is going to be the testing point for whether or not Destiny 2 can really shift and start heading in a different direction. And so guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.